But there's more to come. Up next, the wild and crazy prototypes, a diverse field of cars covering 15 years of development with a group of celebrity drivers, among them actor, racer Patrick Dempsey. This was the star of Grey's Anatomy moments ago, climbing into a Mazda prototype. An accomplished amateur, Dempsey has raced a number of different Mazdas, but how often do you get to drive a car like this? Well, it was a great race either way, and we move on now to the crowd-pleasing prototypes. As I mentioned, 15 years of development represented here. You're on board with Rudy Junko and his 1988 Porsche 962. And there's Patrick Dempsey in the Mazda. And a look back at the starting field from 10th.
These prototype cars, well, you'll see Porsches, Ferraris, Chevys, Jaguars, and Mazdas, but as it was back in the day, the Porsches rule the top 10 of the starting grid.
On board that 1992 Mazda prototype with Patrick Dempsey. And we have a green flag. Mark Hotchkiss, Gunnar Jeanette across the front row. You ride with Rudy Junko, who starts third.
And into the funnel of turn number 2, where Patrick Dempsey has moved up to 5th place.
And you see the name Donahue there, David Donahue, driving a 1983 Porsche 935, basically the car that helped start the class.
Gunnar Jeanette had a look inside of Hotchkiss, who just came right across his bow to defend his lead.
In watching the field as we go on board with Patrick Dempsey again, you're not only seeing these cars, you're seeing them in their original livery in many cases. So you see old racing sponsor names like Leighton House. No sponsorship on the Mazda, however. That was a pure factory project.
The Wins car and the Golf car leading the field. In fact, that Wins car raced just that way back in the day by Mark Hotchkiss's dad. That was one of the very first customer cars.
That's right, John Hotchkiss, often paired with Jim Adams. I called a lot of the Camel GT races in the mid-'80s. And I can remember coming to places like Mazda Raceway, Laguna Seca to watch these cars wheeled around by guys like Al Holbert and David Hobbs. Hotchkiss and Jeanette up front in two very different types of Porsche-based race cars. The pure 962 and Jeanette in an open cockpit Kremer Porsche K8. There you see the running order. We'll be back in a moment. Over 4th place in the rest of the field. Now there's Patrick Dempsey still running in 5th place. In that near one-of-a-kind. Very few of these Mazda prototypes built. And as we mentioned earlier, they had a very short lifespan before Mazda ended the program.
But what a great treat for actor and part-time racer Patrick Dempsey to be asked to wheel this beautiful museum piece. After practice, he could barely contain his enthusiasm.
It's the first time I've driven this, and it's just so much fun. The grip, the sound of the car, it's just you step back in time. It's a time capsule, and it's really, my hat's off to all those drivers that were driving back then, and just to be a part of this event is so great, and the support that I've received from Mazda over the years is just phenomenal. I'm just so excited to be here.
Mazda now has a great program that mostly supports grassroots racers and professionals like Patrick Dempsey in cars that closely resemble those in their showrooms.
Checkered flag is in the air, and Mark Hotchkiss will polish off a flag-to-flag victory in the class for IMSA Grand Touring Prototypes.
You know, here's a young fellow that's a pro racer and has a great career ahead of him, and it's almost as if he was here for the audition. He put in a flawless drive.
Meanwhile, Patrick Dempsey is now up to 4th in his first ever run in this beautiful Lee Dykstra-designed Mazda prototype.
And as you said, Bob, that's going to be just a great racing memory for him to hold evermore. And a great drive by Dempsey.
That it was. Listen to the sound of this car as it goes by. That's what a 4-rotor Mazda sounded like. Look at Mark Hotchkiss celebrating. Think he didn't want to win?